Great defeaters, new and old. Welcome back to another episode of The Breakdown with your host, BaseDaKID. As always, please like and subscribe and share with. Now, I won't do what I say on my channel. How is everyone doing? As you guys can see, it's me on my ones today. I believe Tony is over in Paris at the moment, so he will be at the games. There is a chance he might, sort of pop into the stream a little bit later on, but we're gonna keep this one nice. We're gonna keep this one. We're gonna keep it nice and loose and just relaxed. And I'm gonna be honest, I am not reviewing all the fights that took place over the weekend. So we're gonna rock out. We're gonna chill. There's only gonna be about 2 or 3 fights, particularly we'll be speaking of, or at least I will. If there's any others, feel free to put in the chat fights you want to discuss. I saw the majority of them, but I haven't seen all. And we can even talk about some of that horrendousness that's going on in Olympic boxing right now, which is, I should say the less said the better, but I feel like probably someone has to speak up on some of the ridiculousness that's going on. And I'm not just talking about the scorecards, which I've barely watched half, and I've seen so many disgusting decisions. It's been poor quality, but yeah, is what it is. Let me go into the chat and greet all the people that are in the building from early. It's only correct. Man like Philip, can I get a free time? All right, yeah, Mr. Ever Present Philip Answer. Shout out to you, young blood. Untraceable in the building as well. He says he's got the WBC diamond belt. Shout out. McTasty, shout out. Where's White Tony? That's an interesting question. White Tony ain't been on the show for a little while still. Wonder where he is, but shout out to him wherever he is. I hope he's doing well. Clyde Gordon in the building. Shout out to Clyde. Dani Glover from Fightfantvlive also in the building. And Dan the Man, SC15, the hardest working guy on Twitter. Shout out to you. Untraceable. What he's saying, Eddie and Bud made me laugh. 100%. Oh, Karma Serene in the building, the one and only. Always a special privilege. Thank you very much for being here, especially before work. And Star Fox WR45E, shout out to you. Oh, and look who has joined us, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, right on time to come and cause up noise. Everything getting nice and smooth, and all of a sudden, it's not a Tony appearance without noise and interruptions of myself. But big up to you. How are you?
Blessings to you, brother. I'm very well, thank you very much. I'm just trying to navigate the heat in my house currently. Very unusual situation that I've got no heat control when I need it. As you can tell, sweat is hitting me. I've been working really hard at final preparation for the show this evening. You know I'm doing the gritty, but I'm well. How are you, bro?
I thought you weren't here this week. I thought it was this week and next week that you're doing the Olympic thing. Or is this the last week you're in the show?
This is the last week, yeah.
Oh, well. People, obviously say hello to Tony. I hope he's well. I'm doing okay. All I can hear now is just pure echo and all sorts of madness. But like Danny says, back to regular programming. That's right. It's not a proper show without me getting interrupted. So yeah, shout out to the people. Shout out to Tony. Obviously, fashionably late as only he can be, but it's okay. You know what? It's better because I thought I was doing this one alone, so no issues. What I will say is, I guess now I will give him I do remember you saying before that you had 1 week, but I wasn't sure if it was this one. So I will apologize because your name ain't on the graphic. It's only me, but I can get them to re-upload it afterwards.
No biggie, brother. No biggie. So long as the people get the quality content, that's all that matters. And I'm sure there are people here that are quite happy. Thank you very much, Philip Answer. What's up to Star Fox in the place? Big up to all the regulars.
Okay. Well, since you are here, hold on. There's one or two other people I think who are in the building. One second. Our Ellis Palmer's in the building. Shout out to Ellis and to Toby Bartlett. Salute to
Yes,
you.
big up, Topes.
Right. So, Tony, I'm telling you from now, I'm only focusing personally on 4 fights, right? Maybe
Mm-hmm.
5.
Okay.
Um, I I will spend a very quick moment just to, you know, chastise and denigrate Brandun Lee because that's necessary. I'm only interested in talking about Raven Chapman versus Joanna Sarabia, um, Moses Itauma versus Marius Vach, Garner and Sharp, and obviously Joyce, Chisora, and to pay somewhat respects and also to maybe a little bit of a denigration also to the new heavyweight and light
Heavyweight.
heavyweight women's champion of the world, Clarissa Shields. That's where my mind is. So those are the only fights I'm saying anything in regards to. Feel free
Okay.
to interject and give your thoughts on anything else.
No problem, my friend. I will let you know. I will let you know.
So where do you want to start?
Based on the card, um, you mentioned something there and it's gone past me. What was the first fight that you mentioned?
What, Brandun Lee?
Brandun Lee.
And what's his name? Something Arakuna.
Yeah. So, why don't we start there and you do the business on that one. You tell us what you saw, what you felt, in relation to that. I'm gonna just work a little magic in the background while you start off with that one.
Okay, I know Philip is upset that I'm speaking about this, but Philip, don't worry. It needs to be said. I was the person, probably one of the only people that did say this is a bad investment for Queensbury. The extension of the roster, fine. I understand that you need bodies and you need names, but Brandun Lee was not it. And the performance he put on was substandard to say the very least. And he actually lived up to my extremely low expectations of disappointment. Yeah, to be honest, he actually exceeded it because he was facing a guy that was looked to me like he was actually a natural 130 pounder. To me, he looked small compared to Brandun Lee, and Brandon was not able to necessarily cut off the ring until very, very late on in the fight. And even when he was able to do so, he was getting countered. He was falling in. He couldn't put combinations together. The legs were like lead. Um, and it's ultimately very telling. And I said this to people the other day. How do you sign a 28-0 with 23 KOs prospect, quote unquote, and they end up going on the pre-undercard of an event in London when they've got no London fan base at all? You would think someone like that would be, quote unquote, like one of your big signings, ready for the next step, ready to fight for titles, etc. And they're basically fighting against what you would consider as a walkover fight in the prelims of the bout. So I think they also realized that they made a bad investment, hence why he ended up on the show. I think he was the second person on the before the bell or but the main portion. Uh yeah. Horrid, very, very poor. I'm not gonna say, I mean, the only way it could have been worse is if he got beat, which, at least he did comprehensively win the fight. But in terms of people that said that they were excited for the signing or it would be a good signing for Queensbury, I am sorry. And I'm glad that you guys have finally seen the same thing that I already knew prior to that taking place. and just him being on that card just ultimately made no sense, especially when Queensbury had the they've got the card in LA this week, which probably would have made more sense if you're going to put him on an undercard. It would have made more sense for that, because he's not going to garner a fan base in the in the UK. I don't see it happening, especially if you don't take your opportunity and at least get a highlight reel knockout in your first opportunity. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that one. I'm just going to say that. Tony, feel free to say what you're saying and speak about whatever else, and we'll kind of get back into it afterwards.
Yeah, there's not really a great deal. I kind of agree wholeheartedly with what you said. I mean, I was so surprised that the fact that that fight went the distance. I was surprised that a guy who had such a a long record of fights. 28 is not a spring chicken. You figured that he's going to have enough to easily handle the type of opposition which he was fed, and he didn't look it. So the less said, the better. Let's move on.
All right, go. So, all right, let's go with the other. Well, the card. We'll stick with that card. And normally, I know I like to do big fight, then do the others, then do another big fight. But sequential order makes a bit of sense on this one. And leading off from obviously the boring, horrible, lackluster nature that was Brandun Lee, we then got a fight that essentially showed Brandun Lee how you're supposed to deal with an opponent that is not of your level. When we had the Omen Raven Chapman versus Johanna the Matrix Sarabia. And I don't know why Sarabia calls herself the Matrix, because there's not one part of her that is fast or fluid or angular supreme. It just seemed like a way to maybe get a name, to maybe have people associate you with Lomachenko and put more eyes on you, or to be clever. Now, she was southpaw, compared to obviously Raven, who is an orthodox fighter. But the thing what I enjoyed about this, Raven has been out of the ring for 8 months or so. But what she does do is she has very good movement in terms of being able to get in and out of range. Very quick feet in terms of getting in. A very good pendulum movement, being able to dip in and out of shots. And she has a very, very good body attack. And I said on my channel on Sunday, one thing that's almost a bit weird about Raven is she's a bit crude in the way that she throws some of her punches, but it actually works for her. Because if she were to, I remember she said that she didn't do well in the amateurs because they wanted her to fight a certain style, or a very sort of upright British style with like the straight 1-2s, and she was quite regularly kind of getting beat because that style, it just didn't really work for her. She didn't it wasn't that good for her. Whereas her being more crude, more being able to get on the inside, bring those hooks in, dig those body shots in, is more of a a correct vehicle, a correct vessel for her to be able to get her work off. And in this fight, she pretty much, even though there were some very spirited rounds, especially the first 2 to 3, she managed to get her work off consistently, round by round, to the point where she started to break Johanna down, especially in those middle rounds with the body shots, following that up punches in bunches, big combinations to the head. And there was no round where she wasn't actively, seeking and destroying and just keeping the pressure applied. I 100% believe that if that was a 3-minute fight, she definitely would have got a stoppage, because there was a couple of times where Sarabia looked like she was ready to go, and just as she's ready to go, Raven maybe needs to take another breath to throw another quick burst, then all of a sudden the bell goes. But the one thing I will give to Sarabia, she did quite well in being able to sort of time the left hook. Whenever was it actually, sorry, it was the right hook. Whenever Raven was sort of coming in, leading on the 2s and the 3s. Now, Obviously, Raven understands that with her style, you're kind of gonna you're gonna kind of get hit from time to time, especially if you're trying to commit to your attacks. But if you do have someone that probably does hit a little bit harder, there were a couple of times where she did get either knocked off balance, or it looked as if she got, I won't say buzz, but it looks like there was a little bit of uncomfortable moments. And in those moments, even though she does very well to sort of keep, she does very well to keep the glove glued to the head on normally on the right hand side. She does just kind of need to make sure that she doesn't eat silly shots, because someone with maybe a longer reach or quicker arms might be able to get to her in those particular rounds. But yeah, overall it was a very sort of dominant and brutal performance, and I was incredibly happy to see her back after such a long time out of the ring. And again, as I said, she showed Brandun Lee how you're supposed to deal with coming back from a layoff and inactivity. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that one. Tony, go for it.
Yeah, again, not a great deal that we learned about Raven. Very good performance. The one thing that I just don't understand with Raven though is with her size, with her athletic ability, she's very weak at the jab. She just doesn't use it. And as you said, it maybe suits her cruder style of boxing, a more aggressive pressure fighting technique. But, look, for me, she let that girl just get too much off, because the girl she was game, but she just didn't have, the necessary skills to be able to mix it with Raven Chapman, because Raven's that much stronger. Yeah, you see the size difference. You see that you could see the physicality was different. But one thing I just think, look, if I've got an advantage physically, yeah, and in this situation where I've got dominance, I need to be able to work on certain fundamentals that I can utilize later on in my career. And that one is the jab. She just doesn't have a good enough jab that I could turn around. Because I was sitting there watching it with, I can't remember who I was watching it with, but I'm thinking to myself, look, everything's a hook. She starts her combinations with a hook. She doesn't measure her girl down, give her some stiff jabs. And, I come on here week in, week out, and I glorify the jab. And I just don't see enough boxers, especially when they're dominant, utilizing the jab adequately, because it's the stick finder, it's the range finder, it's the thing that keep your opponent off balance. And that was my one sort of sad point in relation to her performance. But otherwise, yeah, totally dominant. Good to see her back, and hopefully if she does watch this, pick up on that jab, babe. You can do it. You can, you've got that in you. Not that you didn't throw a jab, but that jab needs to be dominant. It needs to make your opponent go, oh shoot, and then not see the hook coming after it.
Okay. Right, where would you like to take it next? Because I told you the fights I will mention, but I'm sure there's others on there you had thoughts about. So go for it.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll start off with young Moses Itauma. He was up against Marius Vach. And I was actually very interested in this, because Marius Vach, he's a seasoned pro. He has a lengthy record. He's been against top guys. And I was very interested to see how Moses would deal with a taller, bigger, heavy guy. Because, for me, I'm thinking to myself, how's he going to deal with a guy who might put his weight all over him? And, what did we see? We saw utter destruction. It's probably the death knell of Marius Vach. It's probably his last hurrah. But we have to give the props to the young kid. I love the way he threw that is it the jab? No, the backhand left, and then switches round the corner, and then he finishes off with a beautiful 1-2. Boom, boom. See it again. Straight left. Boom. in the face, come round the side. Now my guy doesn't know where you are. When he comes round face on, boom, boom, he's going to get it. Bam, bam. And it's all over. What can I say? I am more impressed by that showing than many of his previous fights because it was against a very good opposition. Your thoughts, Base?
I mean, yeah, look, we had 2 rounds. I thought what was masterful in the first round, and you really noticed the size difference between the two. Like, not even just the height, but like Marius Vach looked almost double the width of Moses Itauma in there. But Moses looked like he didn't struggle with the actual with the size and the range, but it looked like he was trying to work out, okay, how can I actually gain entry into such a large target with such a long reach. But the brilliant thing that I think that Itauma did, especially in that first round, was normally you see a lot of people when you got the southpaw and the orthodox, they just start almost doing pity pat with the lead hands, trying to sort of touch the lead hand guard and try to work their way around it. He wasn't even using his lead hand to touch the guard for the most point. He was actually feinting with the lead hand like he was about to touch, and then he was stepping over to his left hand side and shooting the left straight down the middle to the body. And I saw him do it on a couple of occasions where it actually backed Marius Vach up, and there was one time it looked like a really hard straight to the body, and Vach almost, there was a look on his face like, oh no, that's not correct, that's not correct, that's not supposed to happen, and that's not supposed to hurt like that. And Moses said previously that he wanted to to work on the body. He said he saw his body in the way and it looked a bit fleshy. He said he wanted to test it, and clearly he decided to do so. He decided to because a lot of people tell you Marius Vach has got one of the hardest chins and the best chins in the game, but whenever someone's got a great chin, it's the body where you got to invest to tire them out. And yeah, whereas you had people like obviously Frazier Clark and Dillian White and many other people sort of labor with Marius Vach, none of them were able to cut the kind of angles on him that Moses did, and they weren't able to basically hit him from angles and positions that we're not used to seeing. So yeah, it was just a very accomplished performance. I can't discount the fact that Marius Vach has taken many beatings over the years. Is probably a bit shop worn and is 44 years old. But then I also do have to say, well, in that same vein, Frazier Clark fought him at the age of 43 and didn't do anything nearly as comprehensive to that, and in fact even lost rounds against him. So that just does show you the level of trajectory, athleticism that Moses Itauma has, and it's only going to be a matter of time until he fully matures into everything, into his grown man strength, into his grown body. He's only going to get quicker and stronger from now before he ends up hitting that peak where things will start to downturn. But that peak is even the peak is still at least 6 years away. So everything's only going to get better up until that point. And he is someone who is disciplined. So as long as he remains that way, sky's the limit for him. I've said that on numerous times. Obviously, you guys have seen I have interviewed him before. I may get an opportunity to interview him again in the sort of the near future. So if that's the case, we'll definitely revisit that. I know the last one, some people I think criticized the the enthusiasm, shall we say, but I feel like he's a lot more comfortable in front of the cameras now, so that should be a much better experience. And he's not afraid to call names, which is always a plus. And Star Fox, quick one to you. You need to see his passport. Anyhow, he's Cuban or Nigerian. So as from what I remember, he's half Nigerian and he's half Slovakian. He was born in Slovakia. I think his father's Nigerian and his mom's Slovakian. So that's his genetic makeup for you. Any further comments on that, Tony, before we move on?
Nope, let's move on.
All right, so where do you want to take it next?
Okay, so we'll just carry on going up the card until we get to the main event. The next card, the next fight, I've got to very briefly talk about this young kid, Jermaine Diliwayo, signed to 258 manager. He is Derek Chisora's nephew, and he was in a 4-rounder. Very nice kid, good amateur background. This was his debut, and he just looked good. He looked sharp, good boxing skills, good defensive technique, moved around nicely, done well. And I just wanted to give him a big up because I thought he looked very good on debut. No further action. So, next one we will briefly go into will be Dennis McCann in the rematch against Baluta. This one got very tasty in the presser, got tasty in the weigh-in, and effectively they had a draw in the first fight. On this occasion, Dennis McCann showed he was a little bit better in terms of technical ability, picked better shots. Baluta really is a bit of a cagey guy, but you see he's missing quite badly with some of his shots. He's very off balance, and basically Dennis is using better boxing than he did in the first fight. You know, much more difficult to hit. You know, choosing to use his assaults in periodic places and not being, getting into a firefight with Iron Up, because that's what he did in the first fight, I felt. And in this situation, he just needed to box. I think his corner made a point of it to say, you don't need to go out there and war. You're the better boxer, and that's what he did. And obviously, you see on a couple of occasions where he got Iron Up off balance, because they weren't power punches. They were punches which caught Iron Up Baluta off balance, and he ends up on the floor or in the ropes, going through the ropes. But very good performance from Dennis. The W column gets another tick, and he goes on. Your thoughts?
No, I mean, look, like you said, very good, very composed. No real complaints there. Shout out to Dennis McCann. He puts himself back in line for that Liam Davis fight, which I know he's been campaigning for. Don't know how much Liam Davis is interested in it, but yeah, it would be an interesting fight if they did take it, and I would definitely be excited to watch that, especially if they do end up going back to York Hall for that fight.
Cool. There's some fights that I've taken no details of, which you might want to, at this stage, before we go into the last two big fights, which were Ryan Garner against Archie Sharp and Joyce Chisora. Do you want to mention Barney Smith at all?
I didn't watch any of them. The first fight I saw was the McCann fight.
Okay, so Barney Smith, he didn't look impressive. He didn't look impressive. He was fighting a guy called Barajas, and in all honesty, it was for the WBO Youth Super Featherweight title. He did get the decision, but it wasn't an impressive display from Royston Barney Smith. He'll come again. Nassim Hamid's son, I didn't see the fight, but I know he won. And Noakes versus Bassi, vacant English welterweight title, was won by... You know who won that one?
Which one with Bassi and Noakes?
Yeah.
Sean Noakes won.
Sean Noakes, there we go. So that leads us to the last two fights of that card, which were the Archie Sharp versus Ryan Garner fight, which for me was an excellent fight. I thought these two guys were well matched. I did know a little bit more about Archie Sharp than I did about Ryan Garner, but I'm definitely now a big fan of Ryan Garner. He basically took the fight to Archie Sharp. Archie Sharp, a very good boxer puncher, very good on his feet, moves his feet very well. 15-0 Garner facing 25-0 Archie Sharp. So the sharpshooter Sharp has a better record. He was 3 inches taller, but the champion was Ryan Garner, who was defending his WBC International Super Featherweight title. And from the get-go, you see Archie Sharp, he's got the longer levers, but the pressure's being put on by Ryan Garner. Archie Sharp using good footwork, getting the early misses from Ryan Garner. And then there's a good chin check there, which you see Archie off the ropes, caught Ryan with a fantastic left hook. But Ryan was able to hold on to that shot, keep his balance, and then come back and obviously go, and get back into the fight really well. A little bit of nonsense there from Archie. But the overall picture was Archie trying to use the boxing, trying to stay on the outside, flick the jab. But as you see there, some of the action, Ryan Garner was very close in, just constantly walking down Archie Sharp and using his jab really well. He used his jab to line up the backhand really well, I felt. Everything seemed to come off the 1-2. There's a straight right that went in. Again, more shenanigans there from Archie Sharp. But I did like the workmanlike work that Ryan Garner was coming at Archie with, and he just had the beating of Archie by being a harder puncher and a more consistent puncher. Archie did have moments but they were to me flashes in the pan in each of the rounds, whereas Ryan to me was a much more organized, composed, and efficient fighter, landing regularly into the face and body of Archie Sharp. What are your thoughts, Base?
So the first 3 or 4 rounds of this fight, I actually didn't see because I was getting ready to actually go out. So I thought, let me use this opportunity to go out or to get ready. And then as soon as like the Joyce one comes in, then I can kind of shoot off straight after that. So I got in there about round 5 onwards, and I didn't see any of sort of like the first early rounds. But from what I saw, it very much looked like Archie Sharp was doing the better work. He would look like he was keeping the range, and it looked like he was actually getting the better of the counters and the exchanges. But the thing that Ryan Garner had, which obviously I don't know if this was from the early parts of the fight or not, I wasn't able to go back and check, was that he was loading up pretty much with every shot that he threw. It's like every shot he threw was for the knockout, whereas Archie Sharp looked like every punch he was throwing was just to sort of keep Garner at bay. But Garner eventually was able to kind of get close and get in, and basically just keep pressuring Archie Sharp. And towards the end of the fight, sort of round 7, 8, and 9, it definitely started to look like that pressure was starting to take effect, with Archie Sharp having to resort to some, so at times questionable tactics just to sort of keep Garner at bay, which obviously we saw the referee admonish him for from time to time. But based on the actual trajectory of how it was looking, it looked to me like he was ahead in the fight, or at least was like looking to protect the lead. But clearly that's not the way it took place. But towards the back end of the fight, he started to ship damage and started to take very heavy shots, especially those straight rights, which Ryan Garner was getting in with quite regularly from like I said, round 7, 8, 9 onwards. And there was several times where Archie Sharp was just on the ropes, basically looking like he was trying to survive the round. Ended up getting points, and Ryan Garner did claim the title. He ripped the title away from the champion, so congrats to him. I did predict that would be the case, but it'll be interesting to see what they kind of do, what both guys do moving forward in the welterweight division. But yeah, all I say is pretty much congrats, and maybe one of them you may see them against someone like an Echo Esserman in a nice fun fight. I think I could go for something like that. But yeah, all good overall.
Perfect, excellent. So that leads us on to the main event of the night, which was, of course, Joe the Juggernaut Joyce facing up against War Derek Chisora in what was, in my eyes, a kind of end of the road fight, because I looked at this and thought to myself, one of these is going to lose, and that probably means the end of the road for that particular fight. And now, I knew before the fight that Derek's always said he was going to go for 50. He'd laid his plans out. But as far as relevance in the heavyweight division and putting himself up as a relevant, even as a gatekeeper, I thought if he lost and lost badly in this fight, it might spell the end in anything tangible, you know, in terms of like maybe, you know, you see him fight two journeyman in his last two fights because he just can't keep up with anybody of any substance in the contender status. But wow, what can I say? Derek kind of, I mean, the way Derek won this fight was more of a damnation on Joe Joyce than it was a significant telling that Derek Chisora is, you know, pulled you know, something out of the hat, or he's found a new lease of life. No, he looked bad. He looked bad after round 3. You know, round 3, and he's like hitting Joe and falling back 4 steps. And you're going to see that in the clips. You're going to see him hit Joyce with a clean shot and end up 4 steps back, because the impact he just hasn't had the legs to keep himself in a serious position. But as I said, the damnation is, you know, early rounds I thought, you know, Derek employs a very good jab, you know. He didn't use it enough in my eyes because it was easy to hit Joyce with that straight left. But in all honesty, we've always said Joe Joyce fights with his face, because whatever Derek threw, he could land it. Hooks, straight shots, uppercuts, no matter what he threw, he could land it. But of course, the problem is the world runs out after 3 rounds, and it's all just effort and memory. Now, I'll tell you what you've got to look at here in this action is Derek slipping off punches. There comes a sequence coming up where you will see Derek roll and slip under about 8 punches simultaneous, all one after the other. And therein lies the problem. There is something technically wrong with Joe Joyce's punches. Yeah? Derek Chisora is no fast mover. Yet you can't hit a guy who doesn't move fast. Watch this. Hook, and I end up 4 steps back. Hook, here it is. Watch it. Boom, bang on the head. Oh, I've ended up going backwards on my heels. So Derek at this stage has got very little left in his legs. This is the sequence, I think, where Joe misses everything. And, oh, you know, you're like, really, Joe? Really, Joe? Literally, Derek is not moving like Floyd Mayweather. But Joe just missed 8 punches in a row. And that was the story of the fight. Literally, if you look carefully, loads of Joe's shots are all missing. They're just all falling short. Or they're all coming right in front of the target. And there is the great right that Derek threw off the ropes. I mean, he's in a poor position, but he uses the bounce off the ropes to generate the power into that right hand. A good old-fashioned trick, rope-a-dope, off the ropes, straight right, boom, and down goes Joe. See it? He's got the momentum off the rope, boom. And it's just the story of the fight. Joe Joyce is a good fighter, but I knew I was going to drop him. This is not my last fight. I've got 2 more. Yeah. So we knew that story from before going in. Joe says, I don't know if I'm done yet. I'm still pretty fresh. Dude, you need to quit this game. And this is weird because, you know, a year ago, before Zhang, we was talking up Joe Joyce like he could be world title material. He could be AJ. And I have not seen a fall from grace as bad as this. And now I'm questioning how I saw him to be so good in the first place. Now, yeah, he did used to have great engine. He did used to be able to hold a shot. But that fell away real quick because now he can't even hold a shot no more. Derek Chisora's no big hitter. He is no big hitter. I'm just being honest. I wouldn't say it to his face, of course. You know, if those who know I trained with Derek for a long time in Don Charles's gym, and he's a scary guy. But let's be honest, he's not a concussive knockout puncher. He's a guy that knock you down with a consistent barrage of punches. You know, more so when he was younger. But now at his old age, you know, and I know there's only two years difference between them. One is 38, one is 40. But boy, oh boy, the difference in quality of work on Saturday night between those 2 guys was so evident. Yeah. What can I mean, Base, take it away.
I mean, look. I want to firstly just say I was not one of those people saying that Joyce could be AJ, or that, you know, I did think that he obviously earned his spot. He earned the right to be like the 4th or the 5th best heavyweight in the world at that particular time. The fall from grace is simply 2 things. The first thing is very poor protection from both his team and his promoter. And I'm sorry, as much as I love and adore Big Frank, Uncle Frank. You guys know we've had our chats, and I'm very, I've gained even more respect for Frank than I had previously. But he did not do a very good job with Joe Joyce, apart from giving us entertaining fights. But every single fight Joe Joyce took, especially after the Daniel Dubois victory, it was just hard fight after hard fight after hard fight, or give him a spout of inactivity and then bring him back in a keep busy fight that still ended up being maybe harder than it needed to be, a la the Carlos Takams and those type of fights. Which, even though he did what he needed to do, he did his juggernaut thing. He never really had any of those, the special touches and the treatment that someone like Daniel Dubois got. Where was Joe Joyce's Fujimoto's or lattes, and what's the other guy? What's the other guy? No, not Lorena. The Lorena was a difficult. I'm thinking that there was La Tete. That's it. Yeah. So he didn't get any tetes or lattes or Fujimoto's on his run. Everyone was somewhat serviceable at a point. But that was the first problem with Joe Joyce, and then ultimately the second problem, I believe, is that he stopped, as far as I'm concerned, he stopped training for endurance and speed, and felt like, if I just pack on size, I can just wear people down. I can take what they've got and ultimately just wear them down. Him coming in the ring at 281 pounds, ridiculous. And it's weird because I always used to praise Joe Joyce for being one of the few boxers, like, he was a big unit. He was like a 265, 275 pound guy that actually carried weight very well. Like he never really looked fleshy. He never looked sort of big and pudgy. He never looked like he ever had a beer belly. He always carried all of his weight extremely well. So he had great genetics for that. But when you get to the point when you can be 280, 281, 285, 287 in those sort of ranges, and you're coming in and now I can start to see a gut, then you definitely haven't been putting in the work to at least distribute that weight around your body. Like you're not doing what you've been doing previously. And we can see it, like everyone's always called Joyce slow, right? And I've always been a staunch defender of Joyce, saying he's got some of the quicker feet in the heavyweight division, because he's always able to get into range, one stride, two strides, and he's able to cut the ring off and get into range to throw that jab. And the jab was always strong. The jab was always actually quite quick in terms of the opponent, because for someone who was quote unquote slow, the jab never missed. No one was ever able to block the jab. It was everything that came after the jab where the issues were, the mechanics for the right hand, the mechanics for the left hook. That's where the slowness and the stiffness like became apparent in terms of Joyce's style. But in this fight, even the feet getting into position, the legs were not moving correctly. He looked cumbersome, more so than the jab wasn't as fast. The jab wasn't accurate. I mean, the backhand was even slower than usual. The left hooks, at one or two times he managed to time a decent uppercut, but outside of that, everything just looked like the machine was breaking down. It looked like a car that was in desperate need of a service and an MOT that hadn't had it for like 2 or 3 years. And at that point, you try, even when you're now putting a new engine oil in the car and you've changed the filters and the spark plugs, but the car's had too much wear and tear on it, so it's still not moving good, even though it's got these new parts. That's literally how even towards those last 3, 4, 5 rounds, that's what it looked like. Okay, there was a bit of improvement, but it just wasn't where it needed to be because there was too much damage, wear and tear on the parts before. And most of that has to ultimately have come from, I think, the training. His intensity in his training stopped, which, okay, I understand that. You get older, you don't want to do the same amount because it's a lot harder to recover. But I think he started to develop an unhealthy obsession with food and just being bigger, especially after the Zhang fights. And you had people like Sam Jones, and who were former managers of Joyce and whatever. And I I always thought they did him a disservice when they said all he needed to do was just put on weight for the Zhang rematch and you get him out of there. And ultimately, putting on the weight is what got him knocked out quicker. Because at least before, he was quicker and able to avoid a lot of the shots. So, saying that, and not even necessarily go into the actual fight itself, I predicted that Derek Chisora would win the fight. I was one of the few people that did, and I was one of the few people I predicted it purely because I saw the style matchup. Like, Derek Chisora is going to be on the front foot early. He's going to be throwing massive hooks, which they're not going to miss. And as much as you say he's not even a big puncher, a lot of other people seem to disagree. Like, Alexander Usyk said that he's the hardest punch. He's the hardest puncher he's ever been in with, or he's been hit the hardest by him. Also, you had Dave Allen say the exact same thing. And I think what part of that might be is maybe he's one of the only people that's actually throwing his full weight behind every shot that he's hitting them with. So he may not be the hardest one punch guy, but he's hitting people harder than anyone else because he's actually putting more weight behind his shots than the others. So yeah, but I knew he would do that, and then I knew that he's gonna, Derek Chisora has this habit, and I said it in my breakdown. He's got a habit of literally being dead on his feet in the corner, and then he comes out the next round and somehow was able to manage 3 minutes of work and carry on and working consistently, and then end up in the corner looking like he's about to pass out again. And that's just a Derek Chisora trait. I've just come to expect it. And when he can't move and he can't get out the way and he's going to sit on the ropes and he's gonna because of the way Joe Joyce's mechanics are built, he's gonna be able to slip ride and roll a lot of those shots, and he's gonna come back with big hooks that get the judges' attention. I said all of this, and that's what happened. And not only did he do that, he went one better and was able to catch Joe Joyce coming in square, and boom, knocks him down in the ninth round against the run of play at that point, because you really thought the only person getting stopped at that bit is Derek Chisora. And the fact that Derek was pretty much out on his feet from round 7 onwards was, it again, a damning indictment of Joe Joyce not being able to go from gear 1 to gear 2, let alone gear 3, and not being able to keep up the work rate, not being able to, every time he even unloaded 2 or 3 shots, he had to lean on Derek Chisora because he was tired. Again, the conditioning just gone off a cliff. And, ultimately, if Derek Chisora lost, nothing would have changed, because, he is that perennial, the high level journeyman at this point. He's a celebrity journeyman in the game in that sense. And he still would have been able to do his 49 and his 50. But for Joe Joyce, this is a damning indictment, because now, I said, he loses this fight, he becomes the new Derek Chisora. The difference is he's not going to be able to get big money fights because he doesn't have Derek Chisora's charisma. He doesn't have his fan base. He doesn't have his the cachet. He doesn't have the money in the bank that Chisora has from all those years. So we know he'll be in fun fights, but he's not marketable enough to be able to command the big purses or command the attention. So his biggest opportunities now are going to be proving that he can beat the newest and the freshest up and coming stars. And does he really want that as for his legacy? I don't know. I don't think he does. And he said he still wanted to win a world title. I'm sorry, that world title dream is well and truly over now. So if that's what your goal was in the game, there's no point fighting anymore. And I would much rather see him retire than just become that new journeyman, that new gatekeeper, because based on the work he done early, and the good nights of boxing and fights that he did give us, I don't think he needs to go out like that. He doesn't need to end up with a record of like 18 and 7 or 18 and 9 before he retires. 16 and 3, okay, you tried, you had your goal. Like, there's other things, and especially considering the speech, he's not as quick and was witty as he used to be, although that was never like his strong suit in the first place. But everything is slowing down, and there's just too much damage being taken. And personally, I think for not just, health reasons aside, it's time for, I feel like, because he's not going to achieve what he wants to achieve, it's time to call it quits. That's my personal opinion. I never usually tell a fighter when it's their time to go, but we've all seen the decline in Joe Joyce from when he turned over pro in 2017, I think it was, up till now. We've seen the speech change, the reaction times change. He can't even do his spins in the ring anymore, the capoeira kicks. So yeah, it's all time to let up, as far as I'm concerned. But that being said, outside of all of that, it was a very entertaining fight. I knew it would be a fun fight. Sometimes it was entertaining for the wrong reasons, and even I still haven't been able to see fully how he ended up falling down in the 10th round. I thought it was a slip, like some he must have slipped on the canvas or something, but I still haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there will maybe an angle come out some point where we do see how his foot dropped from underneath him. I know there's a bunch of jokes saying, he was that slow, he slipped from a punch he got hit with 3 rounds ago. But yeah, he just was a bad night at the office. And yeah, this totally destroys Joe Joyce's his legacy, his momentum, everything. And Chinese power is still reverberating throughout his system, unfortunately. That's my thoughts on it.
So I've got 2 more points that I forgot to mention. So 1, Derek Chisora's face mash up after 3 rounds. That has become a regular theme now. And that's very worrying. a 40-year-old man still going in. I mean, I don't know. I did show the picture on here a couple of weeks back of Derek sparring Johnny Fisher. And at the end of sparring, they took a picture together. And Johnny Fisher looks fresh as a daisy. And Derek Chisora looks like he's just been in with Godzilla and Dragon Ball Z or whatever the other thing is. Mash the like button. Yes, please. So that's a worrying thing for me because he's clearly getting damage to the face very quickly. He's getting damage even when he's got his head guard on. So, when he goes into these fights now, you can pretty much guarantee he's barely seeing out of his eyes at the end of the fight. His corner are in mad scurrying mode by round 4, trying to get the end swell and the ice and everything to try and keep the eyes open. So big thing for me that there is one of the reasons why, we're going to see him in 2 big fights to finish off his career. But let's just hope that at least the last one's not too difficult. The second point is Joe Joyce's trainer. He has to take a capital L because he's been with Ismail Salas for how long? And he ain't once taught this guy how to defend a punch. And it's not like it's bloody rocket science. So Joe Joyce, if you want to ever fight again, get the hell away from Ismail Salas because he's teaching you how to get your face absolutely mashed up by all and sundry. And he ain't doing anything about the mechanics of your punching so that you become a harder hitter or a more effective puncher. No. As I said, how are you missing Derek Chisora, who moves at like 3 miles an hour with an 8-punch flurry, and you didn't hit him once? And let's be honest, the punch stats for the fight at the end of the fight show Joe Joyce outpunches Derek Chisora by bucket loads. But he just don't land. And that's because the mechanics of his punching are all wrong. And that's all to blame Ismail Salas. Because if you... Listen, I can almost write off the 2 Zhang fights and say, you know what, you fought a better fighter. But against a guy who's 40, I know it's only 2 years, but with the amount of fights he's had and the way we've seen him of late, this should be a fight that you should have been able to just work a jab, use your angles, use your stance, and just keep moving him around the ring and eventually get a stoppage. And it looked nothing close to that, not even remotely. And Ismail Salas has got to take the blame for that. He has to take that totally on the front. I mean, I ain't joking. Bring that kid down to my gym. Joe Joyce lives in Banstead, which is about 3 miles away from my gym. Come to my gym, spar my heavyweight. I swear down, you learn a jab in 3 rounds. Because I'll put on the screen, we got a nice big screen, and I'll go, look at Larry Holmes. For the next 3 rounds, do nothing else but throw the jab like that fella on screen. So yeah, get rid of Ismail Salas. That's my advice to Joe. Go find yourself someone who can totally reinvent you if carrying on is what you want to do. But you ain't getting anywhere, bro, with that style of fighting, with those mechanics. No way, sir.
What I will say, in slight defense of Ismail Salas, because obviously, yeah, it seems like things ain't really been improving, but it was Salas he had in his corner when he faced Daniel Dubois and put on arguably one of his best displays behind the jab and actually avoiding a lot of shots and even dipping and slipping their head. So I'm not sure if it's necessarily Salas that's the issue, or if it's just the fact that he can't do what he was doing before. Because even before, right, when he was still, yes, he was getting hit with shots. I've always said that. But if he used to slow down a lot of his punches and slow down his fights, you would see that almost he was never really getting hit clean. You saw him sometimes being able to roll with the shots, to spring away from the shots, to take some of the sting off of a lot of the shots. He still got hit clean, yes, a couple of the times, but the chin was holding out. It's only more recently whereby I think literally after I think it's the Joseph Parker fight. I think that's what it was. And yes, a Star Fox, slow it down even more. Yes, I get it. But it was a case of, if you look at that fight, that was like the first fight where almost he decided, all right, I'm not moving my head anymore. I'm not gonna get out of the way or roll these punches. I'm gonna barrel forward. You think that you think that you can beat me. I'm just gonna outman and outdog you. And that's what he did against Joseph Parker. And because he done that against Parker, it's almost like, oh, well, I don't even need the rest of that stuff no more, because boom, if you every fight before then, he, yes, okay, like I said, he gets hit, but you can see the movement, you can see the the taking away some of the power, you can see the riding of the shots. But it was from Parker onwards where it's like he believed in the hype, and I think now we just can't go back to correcting it. And yeah, that might be a Salas thing, because Salas can't really get through to him to do things a certain way. But yeah, it's just a case that there's nobody he's going to be able to train with now that's ultimately going to give him back what he's lost, because I just don't think he's got the heart and the desire to really train the way he needs to train to correct those mistakes. That's sort of my thoughts on it. And as
Yeah.
Jimbo Jones said, he did it against Takam and Hammer. Yeah, like there were some some riding of the shots in those fights as well. But he you could tell when he started to believe the hype. He said it himself. He did start to listen to the the people, and maybe get carried away with some of the stuff that people were saying. So and unfortunately, when you believe the hype is when the hype starts to tell you the truth, and that's what happened. But yeah, pretty much
And the
all
other
we
thing
can
that
say about that.
Ismail Salas of late has lost quite a few fights, if I'm not mistaken. I know he lost about a month ago. One of his kids lost his world title crack. I'm trying to think who it was. It was on a night where he was up against somebody else in the other corner, and the other corner had 2 fights in a row. Do you remember that one?
2 fights in a row. What, in
It was
America?
like it was a never very good trainer, and he had 1 fight against Ismail Salas. He won that, and then the next fight that came out was the same trainer, and I was like, right, he didn't even get a break, and he had to stay in the corner and basically take 2 fights. And the first fight, as I said, was against Ismail Salas fighter, and he lost it.
I think I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember the card. I can't remember who was on it.
But yeah, he's not at the best of times recently. He's not at the best of times. Right, so that's that one. The main action from the weekend has now been covered. There was another fight, or there was another card, which was headlined by Clarissa Shields against, I don't know her first name, sorry.
Vanessa Joanese or Lapis Joanese.
Okay. So this was Clarissa going for the heavyweight title, the WBC heavyweight title held by Joanese. And yeah, this was just a total mismatch. But hey, if she's the belt holder, she's the belt holder. There's not a lot else you can do when and that's the wrong is that, yeah, that's the one. So yeah, Clarissa clearly got a little bit of height advantage. I think she's got some heels on there in that picture, but she kind of really was getting into the face of the Joanese girl, and you can see her grimacing, and she's turning into a really, I don't know, just does she really need to go through all of that? Does she, just let the hands talk, girl. Instead of all the histrionics, do what you do best. Knock the fuckers out. Knock these people out. Show your skills. Skills pay the bills. The mouth almighty stuff, it's unattractive. It really is. For someone who is as good at boxing as she is, who's the self-proclaimed GWOAT, she's a fantastic boxer. But she just needs to keep her mouth shut for a year or 2 or 20 or 30. Let the hands do the talking. And, as you can see, she just had way too much for Joni's second round stoppage. Yeah. Well done, Clarissa. Base?
I don't really know what to say about this. I mean, look, there's an achievement. I don't want to denigrate the achievement of becoming a 4/5 weight world champion, because that's not an easy feat. Even if you say that this last one was a cherry pick or basically just handed to her realistically, but she legitimately got the other 3. So, and it's something for her to do. It's something for her to just add to the legacy. But sometimes, especially if you look at it from a football point of view, when you've got people that are stat padders, you might have someone with, they're the most accurate passer in the division with a 97% pass completion rate. But then when you actually go in and watch all of their matches, they're literally passing to the person right next to them, getting the ball back and passing it back to that person 9 times out of 10. And they end up in the most dangerous positions or score the most goals. But then when you realize that actually the majority of the goals that they get from midfield is because they take all the penalties or things like that. So it's a very similar situation with Clarissa with a lot of this. It's like she's got all these accolades, she's got these skills, but it can't be quantified against any decent measure of talent, because there's just not any of that in her in those divisions that she campaigns in. And how do you end up going from quote unquote super middle? Yeah, last fight was middleweight. You go from middleweight up to heavyweight/light heavyweight, and you're bigger than the person that you're facing, who's the champion. That doesn't happen in any other sport, where you go up divisions and you're the naturally bigger person. Not just, you've got a bit of height on them. She had bigger thighs than this girl. We saw with the choice of the weigh-in clothing. She had more ass than this girl. She had cheeks cheeking, and that was probably the best part of the weekend. If you're going to talk about her, she was out there. She
Base,
was
did you
out
have
there
to
with.
go there?
I went
Really?
there. She
Oh,
had the cheeks
man.
cheeking. She was there looking like snacks and full course meals all rolled into one against a woman that was half her size.
Can I just say that the thoughts of BaseDaKID are not the thoughts of the Undefeated podcast?
They're the thoughts of the audience. The audience is all in agreement with me. We all know what we saw. There was a reason that she did that. She could have put on some jogging bottoms or some pants to do the rest of the weigh-in. She chose to do it that way because she knew that would garner attention. She's always spoken about the fact that she's got that ass, and that she doesn't want to lose that, trying to go down to 147 pounds, and whatever not. But ultimately, all we're saying is that she had a size advantage over this girl. So it's mad that people want to give her the achievement when she didn't really achieve much. It wasn't no David versus Goliath. It wasn't the smaller woman coming up. She literally just cut more weight than this girl in her fights previously. That's literally all it is. And Yeah, she was dominant. She was at a point. But if we look at the Stevie Morgan fight with Amanda Serrano, okay, Amanda Serrano did the exact same thing that Clarissa Shields did, but the difference is the girl that Amanda Serrano was facing could never have won a world title. That was literally there just to get comfortable at the weight and have a bit of a tune-up fight at that weight. This girl is literally the champion who's fought 9 times in an 8-year career. And in that 8-year career, she took a 6-year break. I mean, when we look at when you factor in all of this, it's hard for me to give her the necessary credit that she deserves, because she does deserve a certain level of credit. But it's all of the extras and wanting people to believe that you are like the best ever or the greatest of all time. I don't know if we can quantify that. Because if all you're saying is that the way that you can beat all of these girls is just because you're bigger than them, well, that's not really a great achievement. Like, can you beat them because you're more skilled, or is it just because you're bigger? No one in the playground gives credit to the 6'4" bully when he's punching up the 5'7" guys. But they're going to give credit to the 5'7" guy if he's able to take on and beat the bully, because it's an achievement. You beating up smaller people than you is not really an achievement. That's why I can't give you that much credit for beating up this quote unquote heavyweight that again is smaller than you, shorter than you, like less stacked than you. We saw in the ring who the bigger girl was, unfortunately. But I want to give her the credit for the knockout at least, because 7 years without a knockout, and I know that was getting to her. Yeah, you could tell that was getting to her, because all the talk that all the smack talk that she does give, you can tell that she's was feeling insecure about the quote unquote lack of power. So now that she's got that, I'm pretty sure she'll be parading that around until the next time that she's able to get in the ring. But yeah, I mean, how you say, just even there, you can see the size difference, the width. And as you said, look, the cheeks is cheeking, double the size. Look at the arms. Look at the body. Like when they went in front, she's wider than the girl. Like everything, she's just naturally bigger. So it's not really much. Like I said, I give her the credit for just doing something else and stat padding, but that's what it is. It's stat padding at this point. There's the people that she needs to fight. She ultimately needs to go back down to 168 or 160. She needs to get in there with, she needs to fight the Franchon. She needs to fight Savannah Marshall again. She needs to fight Shadeja. There's a couple others. What's her name? There's a next girl who they had an amateur rivalry, whose name is gone out of my head at this point in time. There's a few of these girls, right? That's her peer class. That's who she can get in the ring with. Forget calling out the Amanda Serranos and the Katie Taylors, and obviously, and replying to Alicia Baumgardner if you know that you're not going to get down to the weight she said she'll fight you at. Forget all of that. You're going to have to be fighting the Savannahs and all them 2, 3, maybe even 4 times. That's how you're going to create your legacy, because doing all this up and down stuff now and the MMA stuff is not really helping your case, unfortunately. That's my thoughts on it. I do congratulate her for the win. I congratulate her for the knockout. I know it means a lot to her, and you know, in the ring, I've always said she's skillful. She, as a fighter, I've got no doubt that she is a very skilled fighter. But I've seen certain deficiencies in her game which she's just able to get away with, because she's just not fighting people that are good enough to compete. But I've always said, if she was a lower weight class, I'm almost 100% certain she would have losses on her record by now, because that's what happens when you're fighting top quality competition consistently. That's what happens. But yeah, look, congratulations on the win. It looks like Detroit showed out for her in terms of the attendance. Hopefully she can keep those relationships and she can get another quote unquote big fight or another achievement down the line, and we'll see where we go from there. Your retorts or your thoughts before we close off, Tony?
Yeah, no, I think you've said all that needs to be said on that one. I've covered my viewpoint on the issue. Well done, Clarissa. We move on to next week's action, which of course, massive Riyadh season promoted card from America, headlined by Terence Bud Crawford, my favorite fighter, against Majamov. And a very good-looking undercard. I'll be interested to see some of those guys. Anthony, David Morrell, Andy Ruiz, Andy Cruz, amongst others. So, for me, guys, I won't be here, as I said, next week. I might. You never know. If I'm just trying to think. No, Tuesday I'm at football during the show. In Lyon, so I will not be on the show. But yeah, I'll be at the boxing. So if I see any good prospects, I will, of course. Most of the British fighters are already out of the competition. Unlucky for one of our fighters, Delicious Oreo, who was
It's Ori.
Ori. Anyway, he was very unlucky with the decision going against him, because I thought he won the fight. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some of the action in the Olympics.
Can't believe you called the man Delicious Oreo. Do you know how many pause-worthy moments you give us in this show? That is... From to him to Hutchinson, there's just too many names going around these days, man. I can't keep up.
And Danny the other day talking about Big Willie.
No, you never heard me talking about nobody like that. No. Don't put my name up in them kind of conversation.
It was mighty tasty what you lot were saying on that four-way channel the other day when you were talking about tasty, brother.
Tony, I'm worried about tasty, you know. No. You never heard me talk about nobody like that. Go back and watch that. If you want to direct that towards
you
Danny,
may not directly have said the words, but
it was nothing to do with no. Direct that towards the people it needs to be directed towards. Don't put my name in them kind of conversation there. I don't do them things. Anyway, look.
Socials.
Ladies and gentlemen, look, Tony, as he's not going to be here next week, thank you very much for jumping. I really did not think he was going to be here today. So give them your socials, where they can find you the week after next, or maybe the week after that.
So, guys, I'm going to be doing some blogging on my Instagram. It is Pugilistboy on Instagram, Pugilistboy on YouTube and Twitter X. But as I said, I'll probably be using Insta for some content as I walk around Paris and Lyon, where I will be sapping up, hopefully rubbing shoulders with Javonte, who's out there supporting the USA boxing team. There's some other guys out there that I would love to rub shoulders with as well while I'm there. And it's not unbeknownst for me for that to happen. As you guys know, I have a very uncanny knack of finding myself in amongst the higher echelon of our sport on a regular basis when I need to. What are you saying? What? What are you starting now? What is man saying?
Whoa! Tony, when you watch this back, you're gonna understand. You need to stop talking at times, you know. Jesus, Lord, please forgive him, for he knows not what he says. Oh my gosh!
Oh dear.
Oh mate. Before we go into my socials, yes, Philip, there will be a casual stream tomorrow, 7:30 normal times. Jesus, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, look, my socials down below. BaseDaKID, the hardcore casual. You can catch me there tomorrow on the casual stream. Hopefully I can get an episode out towards the end of the week. Basis picks on Friday. You guys know how it goes. On Instagram and on Threads, it's at BaseDaKID. On Twittex, it's B_A_S_E, or just type in BaseDaKID, and I do think I'm the first one to show up. TikTok, BaseDaKID.thc. I do need to put a little bit of content on there. And also, as you guys know, if you're not liking and subscribing Fight Talk Live, which is the new channel arranged by myself, Maestro, October Red, and Dani Glover from Fightfantvlive. It is all of our channel. We are all owners of the channel, so please go over there, support. It's not like, oh, we're just going onto someone else's channel to talk. It's ours. It's a new community just for our talk. So make sure you guys do jump into that as well. But yeah, outside of that, Tony, I do want to say safe travels to you. I hope you do enjoy some of what you said you was gonna do when you're over there. That I don't really want to repeat it.
Merci beaucoup aussi, mon ami.
Yeah, okay, all of that. Look, ladies and gentlemen, we gonna go. But thank you very much. You'll see me next week. Until then, peace.
À bientôt.